Hello everybody, welcome. It is time to get into the nuts and bolts of the book. Okay, we're going to be using our green painter's paper. Our paper is 12 inches long already. What I want you to do is open it up, grab your ruler, and cut off a piece that's about 5 inches long at the fold. So take it, fold it. Mine's longer, that's okay. If it's a little shorter, that's okay. If you can see that, I did mine at like 5.5. I want to cut it here at 4.5 inches. That's what my goal is. So if you have a little extra paper, that's fine. I just don't want you to have a little less. Once you have your paper folded, pull out your cutting board and we're going to make a nice clean cut along that edge. We have a nice edge right here. Put it on your 4.5 inch marking on your cutting board, or measure your paper so that's 4.5 inches. And it's best to start it in the middle rather than on the end for cutting this, and then do a nice clean cut. Boom! You're done and ready for the next part. Okay, we have our sheet out here, and what we're going to be doing is folding it so that it's more in a shape like this. What I want you to do is measure out 2.25 inches. It doesn't have to be perfect, but basically that's what we're aiming for. So I have my ruler right here. I've got 2.25 inches. I'm just going to take it and turn it. Nothing outrageous there. The next part I want to be about 3 inches. So I'm going to take my ruler, put a little marking, and then I'm going to take it and turn it. So I now have 3 inches. The last part I want to have 2.5 inches on the ending also. So I've got, 2.25 inches. Got 2.25 inches there. I'm going to take it and turn it. So with this one, I'm going to do something a little bit different. I want this to be doubled up a little bit for in the inside of this pocket area. It'll make it a little stronger, and it'll also make it so when you move this little wallet in and out, that it's not going to catch on the edge if it has a lip. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to cut it off about someplace in here, someplace before it reaches the bottom of that point. So I'm going to grab my scissors and just make a cut. It doesn't have to be straight, it doesn't have to be perfect, because it's going to be hidden in the inside. Like this. So turn it on in. You're going to fold that and you're going to fold that, and you should have something that looks like this. Now what we want to do is sew it. Open it up again with the bottom flap turned down as if it's one piece. What you can do is just take a little bit of your glue stick and place just a little bit on there, just so you remember that that part stays glued down as one piece. Oops. Well, you've got to have enough to stick though. Alright. So what's going to happen now, you're going to take your sewing machine and you're going to sew all the way around the outside perimeter of your rectangle. Once we come back, we're going to fold it together and I'm going to glue this part right here. So let's do that. Sew around the outside. Alright, I'm back. Full confession here, I did one. I didn't like how it turned out, so I did another one. Some of the tips I want to give you, as you're going, stay close kind of to the edge. Find a marking on your sewing machine. This one got a little bit farther out than I wanted it to be. At this point right here, it's not a big deal. I could have just kept it like that. It won't even be seen. But it's just something to keep in mind. Keep the same distance as you go around if you can. Another thing that I wasn't paying attention to and I paid for it was I need to stop my needle early. And I let my needle go too far, so I had to retrack it to put it in, and so it looks like that. That can actually be a fun look if you wanted a grungy look, but I just decided to redo it. See that side too? I did it twice. I just decided to redo it so that I had nice edges. So neither way is right, neither way is wrong. It just depends on the look that you want. So there you go. Take your scissors and you can go ahead and clip your threads. Since this is just sewn in paper, sometimes you want to put a little glue spot on there, but we're going to be folding it over and gluing it so it won't be an issue. Let's begin. So since I made this one over, I have to refold it. Well, not refold it, I just have to fold it. So I'm going to put my ruler there, pull it over, and then fold it. I'm going to put my ruler over here, 2 1/4 inches, fold it over, and fold it. So there's my envelope. This is going to be the inside. It has an extra piece of paper there to give it just a little bit more strength. Here is my little pocket, my little envelope. I'm going to take my glue, just place it on this side. So I can glue down my envelope. I like taking little extra pieces, tucking it in the inside so that it gives it a little bit of give, so it pulls the paper out a little bit so you'll have space to move your things in and out of your pocket. Get your lid back on. Next thing we're going to be doing is working on our button. You'll want to find a button that you want to use. This one has kind of a browning, something that you might find on a men's khaki pair of pants. I'm gonna look through here and see what I want to use. Okay, I found a few different buttons. I'll have to decide which one I want to use. I'm going to fold over my flap. It's going to go on the outside there. I can use something that's just plain. This one's a little bit dull, has a matte look, but it's just white. This one's bigger, but it has that variegated tone in it. I think I'm going to stay with the bigger one, but with the variegated tone. We're going to be sewing it into this piece. In order to give it more durability, I want you to find a scrap piece of your craft paper or some kind of paper, a little piece of cardstock, something that's going to give it a little body, something to hold on to. I'm just going to fold this one into a few different pieces. I'm going to fold it in half, then fold it in half again, so it has a nice little thickness to it. So if you can see right here, this is what we're doing. See, I cut out a little piece, and that's just a bunch of layered craft paper like this that I was able to sew the button into. You want to cut it down, just not so it's too big and obnoxious, and I can cut it down more after I do it. I'm going to want it to keep together. Find where you want it, and then grab a needle and some thread to do some sewing with. I used Baker's Twine on this one. It's got that blue coloring to it. But I think I'm just going to use kind of a natural, neutral color. This is an upholstery thread to sew this one on with. So what I want to do, I want to find where I want it, and then I'm going to take my needle, have it up a little bit, and I'm going to just poke holes where my needle's going to go through. So I've got holes right there. I want to also take my little extra piece, because it's going to be going through, the needle's going to go through there too. So I want to hold my needle, sorry about that, hold my needle, and I'm going to poke holes through that to kind of prepare it beforehand. Right there. It might actually be more easier if you have something soft below. That works better than holding it straight up. Okay, so I've got that punched out. So I'm going to tie a knot and begin sewing. You can do it with a double strand, so it gets a little bit extra strength. You just want to make sure that your needle is long enough. I need to scoop my hands up a little bit. Okay, I'm going to start from the back side here and first go through one of those holes on my template. and then move it through one of the holes here. So now I have that there. Take my button, and on the bottom side, put it through, and then I'm going to start sewing. I'm going to go across, and I'm going to find the hole there, and then I'm going to find the hole on the bottom, and then push it through those. So there I've got one strand that's pulled through. So pull it nice and tight. Mine's a little bit caught on the bottom. I need to kind of smooth it out. Pull my threads. You don't want it like super tight, because you're going to be looping a little thread around this outside, but you do want it firm, not flopping around. So go ahead and take your needle, poke it through again. Mine went through nicely through both holes that I had all set up and ready to go. Let's see how this one does. This one I'm having to play around with a little bit more, but I was able to find that last hole that I had pre-punched. So this has a little thread in it from the piece of clothing I cut it off from. I'm just going to pull it off because it wasn't serving any purpose for me at this point. Okay, I've got 2 crosses. I might just go once more if I can find those holes. I found that one. So go there, cross, and so I made an X in mine. You can just make parallel lines also if you prefer that. Whatever you like. And that's all I'm going to do. I'm going to tie it off now on the back side here again, pushing it through my thread, and like that. So this will be seen, and that's okay. I think it just adds to the roughness of the page. Go ahead and clip your thread. I'm going to put mine away. And then at this point you can go ahead and take it and carefully trim around the edge, being careful not to catch any of your green paper. So like that. So it kind of looks button-esque even on this side as you trim it. Just a tad. So I've got that there. So my other thread's going to come out the bottom of my envelope. So now what I want to do is grab my fish book. So here's my book, and this is where it's going to go. Towards the top there. And then what I also want to do, I want to put some of my cheesecloth positioned around it, so that it just kind of peeks a little bit around the outside. You can get this at the grocery store in the baking department, or you can get it like at Hobby Lobby. They have it over kind of by the fabric. There's lots of different places you can get it. So see what that does? So you want to do that. You can either use wet glue or you can use a hot glue. So I'm going to go ahead and use a wet glue and just kind of place some strips around it. If you want it just white, you can keep it like that. If you want it more aged looking, you can take your distress ink and go ahead and go over it. This can be purchased either in white, and they also do have it in cream. So you can buy it kind of already aged looking already. So let's begin this. I'm going to turn my envelope over and just begin gluing and laying it on. So I find that when I just kind of glue like this, it doesn't necessarily want to stick real fast. So I have to be patient, lay it, and not touch it. Just kind of let it do its work. Here's some cheesecloth. I'm going to cut off some more. Just a strip of it that I can use. We'll be using it throughout the book. So it's folded together. It's so thin. As you pull it apart, it has a mind of its own. So there we go. So you can do it one layer, or you can put multiple layers on it. So I'm just going to do a little dabbing. Add a little color to it. Not necessary, it's only if you want it. And then I'm going to go ahead and start laying it down on my piece. So I want enough for the glue to hold it, and then enough for it to be peeking out the other side. So I've got that. Gonna clip this part here and bring it over right there. So this one I'm gonna kind of bunch up a little bit, like that. Grab another little strand. I probably could have cut this a little thicker actually, because as I'm pulling it, it's decreasing in size. It's compressing. Oops, not that. This. Okay, lay a little more glue. And bunch it up. There we go. And then when we lay the whole piece down here on our book, we're going to be gluing it once more, and so it'll have more, it'll be secured more. So I don't want to touch this too much because it'll keep coming up and disturbing it, but that's what I have a look. That's what it looks like. While that's drying, I'm going to take my thread and cut a strand. You don't need it very long. It maybe needs to be 5 inches. This is like way too long what I cut. But that's okay. So this thread is going to be secured at the bottom here. So really all I need, let's see, from my thumb to my finger is probably all I need. So I'm just going to clip that so I don't have all this other part in my way and save it for something else. So that I don't forget this, grab a piece of your washi tape and just place a touch of it in the middle just to kind of secure it, and then put some glue there. Sometimes it's easy to forget something like that, and then you have your thing all glued up. So give that a chance to dry, and then we're going to be placing it down there. In the meantime, go ahead and grab your page 1 from the kit, and you're going to cut out the ruler. For the ruler, you're not going to need the whole length actually. You're going to clip it off right at the beginning of that clip like that, and then you're going to clip it off around the 5-inch line right there. Take your ink and ink your edges. This will look nice. Another thing that we're going to want to prepare while that dries is this little loop. We want a loop that's going to hold your fishing lure in place. If you don't have a fishing lure, you can add a not a pom-pom, you can add a tassel or something dangling, something with beads on it, something to give it an interest. Let's prepare this area. We just want a piece of like cotton thread or crochet thread or any kind of thing just to loop and hold it into place. This is the cotton thread, and I'm just going to cut a tiny little portion off. Okay, now let's prep our fishing lure. I got these ones at Walmart. Fishing lures are really quite expensive. They had this one there for only $1. All the ones that were hanging up were more expensive, like $3 or $4. This one was in a little plastic tub and it was laying on just on one of the bottom shelves. So you can grab something like that. So I don't want to have the hook. This pretty little lure has a hook on it. We don't want to have that. So what you want to do is grab some kind of tape, masking tape, it doesn't matter what it is, but grab some type of tape and get it on your hook. The reason I say that is from experience. What happened when I cut my hook off of my lure, initially it went, it popped off. And it just like popped somewhere in my room, and I had to search my house to find it. So I was a little bit paranoid with a hook on it like that. So if by chance, when you cut it off, it goes sailing into the air, at least you won't have an exposed hook. So I've got my hook now all covered up, and now I'm gonna grab wire cutter and cut that off. Just snip it off. Okay, once you have it snipped off, you should just have an empty little loop. Take your lure, and at the top it's going to have a loop, and feed your whatever you're going to use, whether it's a twine or whatever type of thing, feed it through there, and that's what you're going to use to place it underneath your envelope. So now that the envelope's dry, we have this cut out, and we have our lure ready, we're going to go ahead and start putting things in place. This is going to go here. My string's going to go up, and then this I'm going to place over here. So I can kind of play around with and see where I want to put it, like if I want the envelope closer, if I want to lower it down, whatever I want to do. And this at the very end is going to go towards the top. This is best secured with hot glue. The rest you can put on with white glue. So I'm going to glue down this portion first. It's about 1/4 inch away from the spine area. It's not very far. So give a little glue. I have this printed out just on paper, but you can print your kit out on cardstock if you like, so it'll have a firmer feel to it. Place it down. It's just so fun. So fun to get it going. Okay, then I'm going to position this again. And after I do this, or even before, whatever, I can go back and I can trim some of this if I feel like I have too much of it. I want it just kind of peeking out, a loop peeking out of that top area. So I'm going to lay it how I want it to lay. So I have mine loop through, can you see that? In the position that I want. I'm going to now pick it up, turn it over, just kind of put a little piece of tape there, because that's where I want it to be hot glued. Now I'm going to take my hot glue and glue it down. Doesn't take much glue, but it just gives it a little bit firmer hold and a quicker hold than the other glue, so that's why I like to use it. Now that I have that in place, I can glue the rest of it down. So I'm going to take my wet glue, go all along the edges, and this will, it should really glue down nicely. Okay, flip it over. Make sure my fishing lure is out. Kind of position it between the top and the bottom, and then look at the side. So I think I like it there. So I'm going to go ahead and smush it down. I've got a little glue seepage. I got a little bit heavy-handed on that glue, so I can take a little wet wipe and just kind of go along and get a little bit of that up so it doesn't damage the rest of it and just take away from it too much. At this point too, if I feel like, you know what, I really would like a little bit more sticking out there, I can kind of lift this up, grab my strand, and still place some underneath. Like right there, I think I'm going to put some underneath. So my glue's still wet and fine. Boom, there you go. See? Okay. Let's make sure that's nice and secure, because we have this that's going to be coming over the bottom, and it's going to loop over right there. What I might do is just hold it down a little bit. Now pull out your lures page, and we're going to cut out one of the lures. It really doesn't matter which one you cut out. We're going to cut that out and start this page. So on these pages, I gave just a basic light line for you to cut them out. Some of them you might want to cut a little bit smaller, so just keep that in mind, but just kind of get your basic shape cut out. Once you have that cut out, I want you to grab your green paper again and cut out a strip, a double-sided one, so that you have a piece that's 3 inches by 4 inches. So go ahead and take your paper, fold it, grab your strip, got my board here. I'm going to go 3 inches, and I'm going to have it positioned at the 4 inches, and I'm going to do another cut. So I have a 3 by 4 inch double-sided piece. You can fold it in if it's curling a little bit, and then you can work with it maybe a little bit more easily. So the piece that you just cut out is going to go on the top of this. As you can see, the actual document that this came from was bigger than the size of my piece right here. So I want to trim it down a little bit. Let me show you how I trimmed it down here. I trimmed it so that it was right below that signature line there. And then I trimmed it so that it was just a little bit above these here. So those are ideas of where to trim, and it's not that far off on the width. Basically, so you want to do it so you have a nice tiny little edge around your piece. So let's go ahead and start cutting that. Trimming it down a little bit just so the edges go a little bit better. Not a little bit better, but are a little bit more visible. So I'm going to take a look and see what I've got. Also, it's important that everybody's printer is different, and I swear, you know, sometimes they just print at weird sizes. So just be aware of that too. So here we go. So I like how that looks. So I'm going to stop there. At this point, what you want to do is take it over to your sewing machine and zigzag around the edge of your piece. So it's going to look like that. So it's going to go right along the white edge. If you want to go over your green edge a little bit, that's fine. But just go just a square right around your page, this little critter. Go square around that. Okay, that's then what it looks like. Once you have that ready, go ahead and grab out your page 1 again. There's a fish. This page is called page 1. But we're working on page 2. This is page 1. This is page 2. And there's a fish that has a number 2 by it. That's the fish that we use on this page to just be peeking out the back side of the lure ad. So go ahead and cut that out. And then also gather together your blue tissue paper, and we're going to be using those. So when you cut out your fish, this is called fussy cutting, and basically you just want to kind of cut close to the fish, but you can leave a little white edge around it, or you can cut closer if you want. I leave a little white edge, cutting close but not like, you know, too close. And then afterwards, then I take my distress ink, and I'm going to just distress those white edges that are left from my cutting. And that one's just about done, like that. And then take your distress ink, and you just go right along those edges, and then it just kind of takes away from, I'm shouting out at ya. It just looks just fine. With this particular fish, though, we're only going to be using part of the fish. You can cut it off and then save it for another area in the book if you want, but it's not necessary. So you want to cut a piece of tissue that's a little bit larger than the size of your little square insert here. So just a little larger, and then we're going to glue that behind. So all I'm going to do is hold it up. I'm going to eyeball it, and I'm going to grab a larger scissors, not my short Tim Holtz ones, and I'm going to make a cut around it. Once I cut it, I'm going to hold it up to my page and see if I like it, or if I think it's too long or too wide, whatever. This is going to be peeking out here. So I think it's just a little bit too big, actually quite a bit too big. So I'm going to go ahead and go back and cut a little bit off. You can also rip it if you want more of a little rugged look. On mine I have a little bit of ripping. At the moment I don't remember if it was intentional or not. But it looks good, so hey, I'm going to say it was intentional. Okay, I'm going to see what it looks like. And it fits nicely. I could cut off just a little bit more because it goes over the edge of that stitching if I want to. It's not necessary, but I kind of like the stitching, so I'm gonna cut off just a tad bit more and call it good. Well, I'll take a look and then call it good. I'll call it good. All right, we're gonna do the gluing, and let me show you. It's just a little head peeking out there of the fish. So it's just about right there. You can cut it off at something like that, and that's going to be peeking out. You don't have to cut it out quite so close if you don't want. You can put the whole thing under if you feel more comfortable with that too. So however you want to do it, whatever you feel good with. I'm going to put a little glue on here to secure these two parts together so that they don't become a hassle too as I'm trying to get them on the main part. I think it'll be easier to put it down like that. Yeah, I think it'll be easier because I can see that better. Okay, those are now on. And now I'm going to put glue. It's so porous, this blue stuff. So I'm going to put glue all the way. You can see through it. I want to only put glue up to where the card is down below. I don't want to go beyond where this is. So I don't know if that's showing up on the video at all. But when you glue yours, only go up to that area. And I have made a mistake. Mistakes are opportunities to be creative, and I'm going to be creative right now. So I needed to get my fish tucked in there. So if I can, okay, so it's not glued totally yet, so I can still pick it up, and I can still tuck it under. So where mine is, actually, it's, so I have this one closer to the edge than this one was. So my fish is going to stick out a little bit. So I have a couple of options. I can change the angle just slightly so it's going up. I think I'll do that maybe. So I'm going to glue the bottom of this critter, tuck them underneath my page, and just kind of angle him how I'd like. Peeking out there from the page. There. All is good. There you go. So let's take a look at our pages here. So we have this. Oh, one thing that I didn't do, and you can do it or not do it just depending on what you want. If you want a cleaner look, don't do it. If you want a more roughed up look, do it. So take your Tim Holtz and just lightly go over. If you do this beforehand, you can do the edges better. I'm just batting 1,000 today. What can I say? Some days are like that. You kind of go with the flow, though. So this one also, I could have done all the edges before. But it's not a big deal because I can go back like this. See how I'm just kind of lightly going over? And what I can do is tuck a piece of paper in there so I can do that edge. So I guess, you know, it's a good example of how if you forget something, it's not the end of the world. You just kind of go about it and you make it work another way. One more thing that we want to do today is our card in this. Okay, so here's our little card. We want to cut out a piece that is about 5 1/4 by 3 3/4. Five and a quarter by 3 3/4. This piece you're going to fold in half. And then you want to cut out another smaller portion that's 3 3/4 and at least and like 1 1/2 inches. 1 1/2 inch by 3 3/4. All right, once you have that cut out, what you need to do is take a corner rounder and go ahead and round your edges. So you're going to round all 4 of these, and then you only need to round 2 sides of this, of your little short piece. Then take your Distress ink, ink your edges. This one is a nice one to ink up, because it's going to give it that more rustic feel, and you definitely want that on this. So you're going to do this one, all the edges, on both the inside and the outside. I've got these little fibers that are following me around from the cheesecloth. So these are just kind of rough here initially that I do. Go ahead and bend it also in the inside so you make sure you get that crease. Add a little spot. But once I get the edges done, I want to just take my ink and just lightly go over it to create a little bit more movement, so that some areas will be a little darker than others and some areas just a little bit lighter. It gives it a little more personality instead of just looking like you had ink that you just kind of put around the outside of it. Gives it more of a little worn look. Okay, and you only need to do one side of that one. Once you have that, you're going to take your little piece, grab your glue, and just put a small beading. You don't want to put a lot because you don't want it to take up too much room. You don't want to over glue it. Small beading along the edges like that, and then place it along the bottom of your like fake wallet here. So what's interesting is that I cut this, but my cutting wasn't too good, and the inside one is actually just slightly smaller than my outer one. I'm going to pretend that I meant to do it like that, and no one will know the difference. So just know that you can do that when you make your things. It just looks like it was the pocket in the inside. Grab though, while it's drying, as always, grab something that you can kind of tuck inside to create that little give so that it has a space for the rest of the things, whatever you want to put in it. On page 1, you have 2 pieces of identification here that I have prepared for you. One of them is completely filled out. One of them I put there that is blank. So that if you want to, and you want to write really small, you can actually put your name in there or something in there. It's a fake thing. I've changed all the parts on it. But you can have fun with it. So go ahead and cut that out, and we'll get ready to put it in, because it'll be dry by then, and it'll be ready to go. Another thing that we want to cut from our page is the words. On page 1, there is a space for a word to go, and I'll show it to you in a minute after I cut this. Okay, that's ready. I've got a little white edged slightly there, but I'm going to go over that with Distress ink, so it shouldn't be a problem. So on the page right here, wait, wrong book, I have the word engaged, like they're engaged in the activity. You're engaged in the activity of just researching and finding out, what do you want to use? Are you looking at some fish book, or hearing from a friend, or some magazine, whatever. You're engaged in all of the excitement of what tools you're going to be using to go out and catch that prize fish. So go ahead and take a look at your sheet. On the top corner, you'll see page 1. And then right below that, you'll have the word engaged. You can go ahead and cut that out, and we're going to put it on the page. You can cut it out, you know, just precisely with your cutting board. I just am going to cut it out by hand like this. I think it's good enough. It cuts it nicely. I feel comfortable with it. And then I'm going to go ahead and put a little ink around the edges like that. I've got a nice look, and then I'm going to grab my book, open up the page, and I have it right here. I have the E at the bottom and coming up, so I'm going to go ahead and place that. So I have mine positioned. I'll give you a close-up of it so that the E is just kind of just about touching my stitching down there, the zigzag there, and is close to the zigzag on this side. So that's how I have it positioned if you want to position it like that. So there you go. There's the 2 pages. This is the one I just did, and this is the one that I did previously. And this is just about ready. Let's go ahead and ink that up. The other thing is probably just about dry. I chose to put one in there that was the one that was already filled in. I can turn it over, grab a scrap piece of paper, and then just go ahead and ink up the back also, so that it's just not that bright white, unless you want a bright white. Nothing wrong with that. Do it what you like. Okay, I've got that ready. And this is dried sufficiently, and it tucks nicely in the pocket. So one other thing I did with this is I took a stamp and I stamped on the front. So this particular stamp is like a postcard stamp. You can use whatever stamp that you like, though, to create that type of a look. You don't even have to put any stamp. You can write on it. You can put some other thing on there. So it's whatever suits your fancy. So I'm going to tuck this one. It's hard for me to tell what the original was and what the one that we just made. I'm going to tuck that one back in. And I'm going to actually not stamp this one. I'm just going to put this one in. I'm going to tuck that in. Uh-oh, okay. So I've got a problem here because my glue seeped farther over. So what I'm going to have to do, I'm going to have to take a smidgen off of mine. Stuff happens. You gotta go with the flow. So I've got a little smidgen off there, and I'm gonna recut that, and then I'm gonna do my edges again with the ink, and I'm gonna try it out and see what happens. My little cutter oftentimes doesn't cut really well. I need to get a different one, you know, and it never has. It's always left kind of little tiny ridge there. It's a great cutting tool, though. I really like it. Other than that, okay, let's hope it works. Okay, it works. It's a little bit tight, but once I work it, it comes in, works nice. There you go. Okay, so I'm going to close that up. I'm going to take my piece of thread. I'm going to wind it around it, and I've got that done. There's page 1 and 2.